Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you for watching my video today. Today I thought I would do another one of the jumbo cards from the Maremi Jumbo Card Challenge. I'm sort of working right back from the beginning when Marta first started this challenge over in her group over on Facebook, and I will put a link to the Facebook group in the description box, and I'll also do the hashtag for the Jumbo Card Challenge. Now, this week's one, which was from many weeks ago, was to use music notes and circles and foliage. So that I'm starting off by using some of the paper from the Whispers Between the Music Notes collage book, and I sort of chose my colour scheme, and then I drew around just with a pencil that I grabbed from the side, roughly the shape of the and size of the jumbo card. Now you don't have to use an actual playing card, just a piece of card in the actual size. I think I'm going to guess 5 inches by 3.5 inches, but I'll put the proper measurements again in the description box, along with all the items that I have used. Now, I stuck on my paper with some Liquitex matte medium, and then once it was dry, I used this sanding block to just go around the edges. Now, I find this a really nice way to get quite a good sort of clean edge to your cards. Well, clean but not clean. It gives you a little bit of a distressed edge as well, depending on how rough you are. I quite like the distressed edge because I then often go, like I do today actually, over with some distress ink, and it gets it catches the edge nicely. So I just go around. You do have to be a little bit careful with something like this, and you do have to make sure your glue is dry. If you do this while the glue's wet, then it just becomes a bit of a mess. So once I had removed those edges, I'm just sort of giving it a little bit of a clean off. And then I got out the Vintage Photo Distress ink. I've got the little minis there. And I'm putting underneath my blending mat just so I can get a nice blend onto my card. And I'm using one of these little stencil blending brushes. I find these, for me, I prefer using these than lots of other different sort of applicators. You will see me using other things because I've got a lot of different ways of doing this, and it depends on what you're using and how you want the look to go. But for things like edges, I do find that if you use something like a blending mat and then a brush, you get a much more gentle, smoother blended look around your project. So just cleaning off that ink, and then I wanted to add a bit of the foliage with some paint. So this little stencil is from Be Crafty. It's from a D'Inkables set. I think it's set 6. I will list it in the description box below. And I'm using the Amsterdam acrylic paint, and this colour is Titanium Buff Deep. It came in a set. So I quite like the little dinky sort of tube sizes. So I just wanted to add a little bit with my stipply stencil brush through onto each, well, the two opposite corners, just to add a little bit of sort of interest in the background. Right, then for a circle, I got out my dies and I die cut a piece of watercolour card, and then I die cut another piece of the same paper that I'd used for the background with the same die, and then stuck the two together. And I just was doing this just so that it had a little bit more substance to it. So I realised after I'd started sticking it down that I hadn't put much around the edges, so I had to add in some extra glue. And then I did the same as I did with my outer card, in that I'm adding a little bit of that distress ink just to emphasize the edges, to give it more of a defined look. I felt at this point that I needed to add something else into the background. So although these are not technically circles, well, they are, but they're not pure circles. They are coffee rings or coffee stains, and again, this is a Be Crafty product. This is a Be Crafty stamp set. and I'm just adding a bit with the Archival ground espresso. Now it didn't stamp that well to start with. I think my little archivals are sort of getting towards the end of their life, and then I decided to just again emphasize those edges a little bit more by adding a bit of the Archival, which was a darker shade of brown, both around the outside of the jumbo card and also the circle. Now for my foliage, I wanted to use something from the Autumn Stories book, because here the weather is already starting to get that feel about it. I have to say, I think the trees and the leaves here have started to change quite early this year, and they're already starting to fall. So I went with that vibe, because of course it's foliage as well, so leaves. So I cut out the little fairy, and I cut out some leaves. Now the fairy I backed onto some thin white card, and all of the bits I then added some pen around the edges just to fill out that sort of raw edge. The leaves were, I didn't cut out super finely, but what I did do was, once I'd finished, then I went again, like I say, with the pen, and I didn't mind if there was little bits that looked a bit more raggedy, because they're meant to be like fallen leaves. Now I stuck my circle on with a bit of foam. I decided I wanted to go quite dimensional with this card. And then I'm sticking my little fairy on. I just put a piece of foam pad on the top of the head, and then stuck the body flat, because obviously I had that dimension from where I'd stuck the circle down in the first place. And then I'm just arranging the leaves using some pin flare glue gel. That's what's in this syringe. Now the glue gel comes in an actual tube, and then I decant it into the syringe so that it's easier to apply to smaller areas. You can get Collage glue gel as well. I choose Pinflair glue gel because it's not as strong smelling as silicone glue, so I prefer it. So I'm just like making a little arrangement of the leaves on the bottom of where the circle was. Now I wanted to add some splashes, and I thought, rather than using white, I'd go with this brown Winsor & Newton ink. It's called Peat Brown. And first of all, when I was doing it, I was getting really fine sort of speckles. So I went in a bit heavier, got some really big speckles. And I just put that little bit of paper over just so that she didn't get a speckly face. And then finally, I've got a sentiment from the Tim Holtz Labels set, which is the Thoughts version. And normally I add a bit of glue, but I felt this one was quite sticky. So thank you ever so much for watching today. If you have enjoyed this video, do please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, then please do hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed. Also, you will see a big shout out saying thank you to my lovely members who are my super supporters. And I will also link information if you're interested in what extras you get by becoming a super supporter down in the description box below. And so until the next time, bye bye.